Well, g'day and welcome back to Reality Check. I'm your host, Ross Coulthart. Now, one of, I suspect, the most intriguing stories or accounts in ufology, UAPology, if there's such a thing, is accounts of encounters with beings, entities, aliens, a non-human intelligence. Periodically, I'll get sent videos of very blurry, faraway objects and people say they saw an entity or a being, and it's very, very frustrating. But today, I think we've got something quite extraordinary. A Green Beret, former Green Beret, Magic Mike Battista is joining us. Welcome, Mike. Good to have you here.
Happy to be here.
Mike's a former US Army Green Beret. I think you got out in 2023. Is that Mike? Right, Mike?
It was around 2021.
2021, was it? Right. Mike's also been one of the psionics working very closely with Jake Barber's SKYWATCHER group doing the psionic summoning. And in the course of the last few years, Mike's been seeing and experiencing, often in his private capacity outside of his work with SKYWATCHER, some quite extraordinary phenomena. And we're going to show you a video today that, frankly, is extraordinary. And I challenge anyone to provide me with a prosaic explanation for what we're about to show you. I think potentially what Mike is about to show us today is momentous. Is it imagery of a non-human intelligence? Magic Mike Battista, welcome. Welcome to Reality Check. Good to have you here.
Happy to be here.
Before we get into this, Mike, can you just explain to me, when did you first become aware of the fact that you had these alleged psionic psi abilities?
So it was completely by accident. Growing up, I had seen the, UAP phenomena in the sky, and didn't think much of it. I felt like I was the only one seeing things in the sky. And it wasn't until, I was ending my military career, I was on leave and I was out on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And, I was outside, it was dark out, and, I was just looking up at the stars. And I saw something going by. And, growing up, I had watched Ancient Aliens, UFO Hunters, all that stuff. It's entertainment, it's fun. And, and I'm a military guy. So, when I see something going by in the sky, I'm like, oh, it's satellite, drone, plane, pretty easy to identify. But this thing that was going by, it looked like what you would call an orb. And just from my basic knowledge of, the phenomenon, it was very basic at the time. It's like I heard they communicate telepathically. So I'm just sitting out there like thinking to myself, well, if that's an orb and this is, potentially non-human intelligence, if you can hear me, stop. And this thing was just going and it just stopped. And I was sitting there, I was like, whoa, that's not normal. It's pretty late. Mike, you probably need to go to bed. You're hallucinating. So I'm standing there. I was like, wow, that was crazy. So I was like, okay, so if we're doing this and this is real, I see you and you see me. Shine the brightest white light that you can, and this thing just started glowing, like a little mini sun.
So that's called a pulse. I understand in the parlance that's called a pulse up. It kind of flashes at you.
Yep, it did, and it did it instantaneously too, which I thought was interesting at the time.
You shine your light again for me, please. There you are. Thank you. One more time, please. Thank you.
So, Mike, that's where you're saying you actually invite a UAP to shine, and it flashes at you, and you say, There you are. Can you talk to me what happened when that happened?
So that wasn't the first occurrence that you brought up earlier. That was maybe a couple months ago, and it was I was just looking up at the sky, not particularly trying to communicate with anything, but it seems like the phenomena just kind of pop in sometimes to say hello. And after the amount of experience I have now, it's pretty easy to spot them out. And as it was going by, I was like, flash for me. And then it would pulse. And, I sit there and I think I said, thank you. And, it does it again. And before it just speeds away. And that's what's interesting about the phenomenon, like the responsiveness just from thinking about it. There seems to be a connection there.
Now, one of the things I've got a healthy respect for, I've met a lot of people in special forces, commandos, and the Green Berets, of course, is an elite unit in the US Army. A lot of the guys that I've met over the years, and women who've worked in these areas, they often talk about an intuition. They have a kind of a second sight, a sense that there's an imminent threat. Did that ever happen to you as a soldier?
Yeah, I think when, especially when you're going through training and you're being indoctrinated to that type of lifestyle, you're constantly in that fight or flight mode. And I think that may actually enhance that intuition, that gut feeling that, danger might be around the corner. And I've always listened to those gut feelings, and they haven't served me wrong yet. So,
Had you ever been aware of detecting UAPs, UFOs in your time in the military? Had you ever seen anything anomalous during your time in service?
the only anomalous thing that I saw was, so the first occasion that I told you about a year later, it went dormant for about a year after that, pulse. And, I was asking it to go to different parts of the sky, and it was doing it. Went dormant for a year, completely strange. And then it was March 15th, 2021. It was like the day my life changed and will never be the same. I was at home. I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and I was just in my backyard just looking up. And I look up, and there's this blue mist pretty high up in the sky, but not that high up, like not like a satellite. It was a blue mist, and there was this transparent cube in the mist, which I snapped a picture of as well. And that was the start of this journey.
So just talk to that blue cube for a moment, Mike, and talk about it for me.
Yeah, so it was just hovering, just stationary in the sky, and it looked like the cube inside was transparent, and it was kind of moving like this, and then it just kind of drifted and faded away. And I was on the phone, so I was like, I told him exactly what was happening, and then I didn't think much of it. I just thought it was cool, until the next day, and then the next day, and the next day, where I was consistently being visited by this phenomenon daily since then. And it was almost like they showed up and they're like, hey, we're not leaving. Like, we're here. Like, the faster you get over it, the faster we can get back to business type thing.
So when you say that there was that level of communication, that level of messaging, were you actually hearing a voice in your head? How was it communicating with you?
Well, that type of communication, like, for me had to be built over time. It didn't just come, the first time I saw one. It's like the responsiveness and asking for validation for certain things. It's almost like they teach you the language to communicate with them with. And I'll like project the thought out, like in an attempt to communicate. And even now, like I'll feel like I'll get a response back in words, and not particularly my voice, but it's been validated when I get these confirmations. And even now, still, I struggle. Like, is that my imagination? Am I just making it up? Or but when they show up, when they do what you're asking them to do and inviting them to do, there's your validation for that.
So when did the landing incident occur?
Oh, there were several of those. The one they're revealing today, that occurred in April of 2023.
So talk me through how that came about. What was happening? Why do you think that this alleged landing of what I say this with a laugh because it is just such confronting imagery, what we're about to show the public. It is extraordinary. How did this happen?
Well, this is after a year and change of just being outside every night, like interacting with the phenomenon and building that relationship, but still not understanding my purpose in this or why they're visiting me, almost like loitering. And I want to say harassing, but they're like, hey, we're getting his attention by any means. So, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, why is this happening to me? Like, what do you want? You guys are showing up every day. We're doing this. Like, you come in close, but for what purpose? Like, if you're this hyper intelligent species, this non-human intelligence, that's way far more advanced than us. then just land. I was like, do it. Like, are you too scared to land? I was almost antagonizing, the connection in my mind, and because I was frustrated, I didn't know why this was happening, and I didn't think they were going to do it, and they called my bluff, apparently.
So the Green Beret called their bluff, and they called your bluff because they did. What happened? Talk me through what happened.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the sky, and very clear night. And after expressing this frustration, I see something very high up in the sky, like you see like a satellite or something, but it was blue, and it was going by overhead, and it ejected something out of the back of it. And it had its own like light source, almost looked like a shooting star got ejected out of the bottom of an orb.
Mike, at this stage, you're holding your phone up, a cell phone, and you're filming what you're seeing, correct?
Yeah, I believe that was shot on a Galaxy.
Okay. What did they say to you about your dog? Tell me that story.
So, again, it was like infant stage of NHI communication. And, I asked them to land, and then I instantly got this thought response back in my brain saying, we'll land, but only if you put your dog away in the crate. And I was like, oh, that's a strange request, because I usually my dog has seen more aliens than anybody. Okay, he's always with me. And, but he's Belgian Shepherd, Belgian Malinois, Dutch Shepherd mix. And, he's...
Oh, they're a very big, fierce dog. They're used by a lot of people in special forces, but they're Absolutely. A terrifying animal, aren't they? They're a very fierce
Absolutely.
dog.
So I was like, all right, sorry, Duke, you have to sit this one out, so I brought him back outside, and then that's when something ejected out of the bottom, and then you could see it slowly, coming down until it just started to get closer and closer. And then, once it got in proximity of me within 100 feet, as it was closing in, it did something to me that affected me physiologically in a way that almost made me docile or compliant, which I thought was strange. Almost like not a dreamlike state or a trance, but like it was way too casual for me at the time to be seeing that happen.
Well, you're about to have a close encounters of the fifth kind. You're about to meet, allegedly, something non-human. I would be pretty excited and possibly a little bit scared. I can hear your respiration on the video. You're breathing far more quickly than normal, I think.
Right. And so when it was coming down and it finally hits the ground, I'm standing there and I'm looking at it. I'm like, what is that? I didn't have a frame of reference, because I hadn't seen something like that yet. So I'm staring it down, and it's staring me down. And then there's also a chicken nearby, and we're all staring each other down. And it almost looked as surprised to see me as I was to it. So
now, Mike, in that freeze and zoom, you see it looks like some kind of translucent white-blue face, but it's not a human face. It's two black dots for eyes. That looks like a sort of a dot for the mouth, and it's a long ovaloid head.
Is it on the ground or still in the air at this point? I can't see the video.
I think it's still in the air at this point. It seems to be metamorphosizing out of nothing.
Right. So as it was coming down, it looked like ethereal, like if they're interdimensional, maybe it was still materializing in the third dimension. And as it got closer, I remember it started morphing like this and pulled one of these, and it was shape shifting into all these different, things. I don't know what they were. You have to take a closer look at it until it turned into something that you would see on a petroglyph, right?
I want to stop you there for a moment. It looks almost like it's got wings. You see the head, and then you see bluey white protuberances out to each side.
It came down as it looked like a cube with something sticking out the top, and then it started morphing into certain things. And then it turned into something you'd see on a petroglyph. And then after that, I saw a humanoid looking form of it. And he was like wearing a skin tight metallic purple suit, greenish, grayish, bluish skin. You know, it was nighttime in the camera. And then after that, that's when it appeared as what you're talking about. And in the video, like when I was seeing it in person for the first time, I was like, oh, that kind of looked like an angel to me, because it kind of had like the wings like this and like a light emanating at the top, like a halo. But as it got closer, it wasn't that, you know, stereotypical, you know, image of an angel you get, you know, when you think of the Bible. It was a solid craft that was lit up in that way.
At this point, is whatever the object is, entity, object, whatever you want to call it, is it telepathically communicating with you?
So at this point, I was in that docile mind frame, and I don't think that it was. I think it was induced almost, because like once it actually hit the ground and I saw how big it was no bigger than 3.5 feet, and it probably didn't want me to come closer. Like Ross, if something landed right here next to me now, I'd probably be more inclined to walk up to it and see what that's about. But that wasn't a thing. And the fact that I was even able to reach for my phone, I was fighting it. And some of those shots are very shaky. I actually had reached for both phones, and I was trying to see which one looked better, but it wasn't. It was just so surreal that it's hard to describe and replicate unless, you know, you're in that position.
But what certainly what I'm seeing, and I think what you say you saw, you see some kind of what looks like a being. It's got an ovoid head, small eyes, a mouth. What would it be?
And it had like
Fair to
football
say,
head.
do you think it would be fair to say that it looks like an insect,
Well,
like a praying mantis?
I saw a lot of things that night. You know, that the photo I think you're talking about, if you see the purple, if that's the one, that to me looked like a gray because it was so small. But as the experience progressed, it started to, I saw more than one entity that night, you know, and I did see something that looked like an insect for sure, like a praying mantis.
I'm watching this on real time, and you need to go frame by frame, but what you can see is it kind of moves between looking like an insect, like with that ovaloid football-shaped head, and then it's like the classic grey head, like the Whitley Strieber Communion book with the round bulbous head. And you can see why it looks like an angel, because you see what looked like wings coming out from the side of it. It's quite extraordinary.
Yeah, it's you know, that was something that, you know, took time to actually cope with after the fact. You know, like what just happened to me.
Are you
And I'm sure
scared?
we'll
Are
get
you
back into
scared
that.
at this point, Mike? Is there any apprehension in you at this time?
No, there was none. It was strangely casual. Um, it was too calm. It was very familiar though. Very familiar feeling.
Do you think you'd had this experience before but forgotten about it?
No, that's unforgettable.
No, but when you say it was familiar, what do you mean?
Just like, you know, even like say if you're in a room and someone you don't know walks in, like, you know, it's not a familiar feeling. Like there's that vibe there, you know, that's something you feel. Like when it was coming down, it was such a spectacle, and I knew that was for me. Like I don't think it was just saying hello because it was in the neighborhood. Like a thing came down for me, and it was, you know, it was a special experience. But again, like it wasn't like a paralysis feeling. It wasn't fear. There was excitement too, but it was like at first it was just that shock factor. I was like, what is that? You know, what is it?
Now, I just want to explain to our audience, you had been in Utah shortly before you did the processing on this video. I mean, obviously this video was recorded in 2023, but you've been working with a lovely fellow, a fellow Viking, Carl Andreasen, Carl Crusher on YouTube. Recommend his shows, by the way. He's done a lot of work on indigenous pictoglyphs. Now, what's fascinating to me, tell me the story about the pictoglyph that you saw of, you see a shape that is whatever this creature has morphed into. And it is uncanny because it looks like the pictoglyph that you've sent me a picture of that you and Carl Crusher had seen only a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. During that experience, like one thought I did have was it's turning into all these things. Like, okay, if I'm just, compared to something that's hyper intelligent, I'm a dumb human. Hopefully it's showing me something in a specific sequence so I can understand. And one of the things it turned into was something you'd see on the petroglyphs all over the world. And it's, they're very rigid bodies. They come in like this. And it was holding a shield, and like it looked like something else in its hand too. But you see them all over the place. But the petroglyphs we visited in Utah, they had spirals in them, like a spiral. And Carl was telling me that, different directions the spirals mean one thing or the other, like going forward in time or back. And when it created that image of that you would see, it's almost like obviously they saw that too, and then took enough time to carve it into rock. Something else came out of it, like it opened up a portal, to be like in the third dimension. It was physical after that. It wasn't like a plasma or still manifesting. It was physical after that.
So forgive me, it's a petroglyph, isn't it? That's the correct terminology.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I made the mistake earlier. It was my mistake. So is the correct term petroglyph to describe this rock art?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so in that petroglyph, is he holding what looks like a shield?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it can be interpreted different ways depending on who's making those petroglyphs, but they're all consistent. They're all holding something, and they usually have a spiral on it. I didn't see the spiral in the footage that I have, and I'm not a master editor either, but it seems to be connected to a portal or moving forward and back in time.
So this is really cool. So you're looking at a petroglyph on a rock face in Utah just a few weeks ago with Carl Crusher, Carl Andreasen, and it appears in the 2023 imagery to have displayed something that is uncannily similar to that petroglyph.
It's not uncannily similar. It's the same. It is the same thing.
And when you saw a few weeks ago that petroglyph, did anything anomalous happen while you were there with Carl?
So during the day when we went to visit, I'm not sure of the picture, but the one where I'm looking up at it, nothing happened at that moment. But we went out to the Anasazi Trail, which has more petroglyphs like that. And as soon as we got there, it's like they opened up the welcoming mat. We had this giant white orb that just like welcomed us. It just appeared as soon as we got there, and we got in a video, and you see it just going up out into space, and you're like, oh wow, that's cool. We didn't even have to hike up that far. All right, let's go home. No, so we kept going, and he showed me all these spots that he frequents, and they're special to him. And he showed me this place that he calls the shaman seat, and there's a whole series of petroglyphs there. The shaman seat's like carved out rock where like a shaman would do his initiations and sit there, and you're looking at these rocks, and they're telling a story of I guess it's the birth of the universe and life and creation, but it's these beings that are like walking through one portal and the rocks up here, and it's coming out of another portal down here, and it's the same stuff that we're seeing in the video.
Now, what really blows me away here is the implication that the entity was reminding you potentially when you filmed that video in 2023. Do you think there's a connection between the video that you filmed in 2023, which we've just shown here, of what looks like a humanoid figure holding what might be some kind of shield or some kind of object? Do you think it was trying to flag to you when you were looking at the petroglyphs just a few weeks ago that that's the same thing?
Well, since I saw that, during the experience, I've been chasing that, and that led me looking for petroglyphs. And it wasn't until I met up with Carl and he showed me the ones out in Utah that are really like, look, those are the ones. Like I've seen similar ones because they always have the arms and they're like this, but these ones were so spot on, and they had the shield, and I knew that they were trying to tell me something, and that kind of led me on that journey, and it's, it sounds like we're unlocking mysteries through this ancient art.
So it gets weirder, guys. Stick with me here. I mean, I know we're talking here about Magic Mike communicating with a non-human intelligence that's actually pointing out petroglyphs to him in Utah to remind him of what he'd seen in 2023. But it gets even weirder.
That just reminded me, I didn't mean to interrupt you, that it kind of had like a eureka moment at that time. Like, it wasn't until I visited those like exact ones that looked the most similar and sat in that shaman seat that, like, you know, days later, I'm going through old footage that I've looked over, you know, overlooked, excuse me, until we kind of like really did a deep dive on this one. And then the timing is impeccable for this. So just the discovery to where we are now, talking to you.
Mike, what you see is it's a white platform of some kind, and there is what looks like a squatting humanoid figure. Looks like they've got their knees in a squat and their back is curved, and it's the classic large ovaloid head, and it's side profile looking out from left to right. Did you see that with your own eyes at the time? Were you actually perceiving this as an entity sitting on some kind of a platform as you're filming this?
So the entity was sitting there, and the thing that caught my attention immediately was there was something poking its head out from behind it, looking at me. That was smaller than the grayish whitish thing you're talking about.
Oh yeah, you see it. It's literally
You
the
zoom
next
in,
frame. Yeah, 3 minutes 55. Yeah, so it's peeking around that person.
There was multiple beings there that night, and some of them, like, there was just changing. There's so much change. Like, it's like looking into a portal. Like, you'd have this one being looking a certain way, and then like it would just completely change. In like it would almost look like it would be on a craft that it changed. Like, everything was just so strange. It was morphing.
Okay, so I promise you guys, it gets even stranger. Now, this is where I gasped. As you probably know, Mike, I went to Egypt with friends last year, and I saw a lot of carved granite Egyptian statues. And the image we're looking at now it looks uncannily, I call it the Egyptian. It's uncanny. It's a bluey, purpley white object, entity. There appears to be an arm extended, its right arm. It's looking towards the camera. It seems to be sitting on a platform of some kind. Can you talk me through what you're seeing at the time?
It's hard with the video not in front of me. So you said the arms extended, is sending it out and touching something. So it looked like there was. It's hard to say because to me it looked like a skull. It looked like it was holding a skull out in its hand, you know. And that reminds me, like, because the petroglyphs out in Utah we just saw, those same ones were holding heads, like they're calling it the headhunters. And I was like, well, maybe that's like an interface and it's like touching something, you know, like we would. But it seems like it was a being, and then it grabbed onto something. But then later on in the video, it almost looks like that centerpiece stays consistent, and it's like almost like a portal, and things are coming in and out of it.
So I'm just stepping forward very quickly because there is just a most breathtaking moment. It's uncanny, Mike. It's the moment where I think irrefutably there is an image of what looks like a humanoid head, but it's not human. It's alien. It's got a long neck, a football ovaloid head, dots for eyes, black dots for eyes, a black dot for a mouth. Talk me through did you see this at the time?
Is that the one that looks like he's leaning up against something? He's sitting up against it?
It's literally all you're seeing is a translucent white blue object showing looks like a mantis being or I don't know what it is, but essentially
right. And those things were only like, it happened so quick, and I saw so many different beings. Like the mantis being was one. I saw something look like a gray, and then actually, if you look above the white ethereal guy crouching, there's like this bluish. It almost looks like a mask or a face that's been. There was like another taller entity that was, you know, behind. Like, there was so much going on there, and you could see in the video, like every like 10 to 15 frames, it changes into a new being in a whole new like setting and environment in that little area.
Yeah, it's almost like it was showing you everybody there saying, "Hi, this
Yeah,
is me.
yeah,
Here's another guy." I mean, within a second, there are multiple entities, but there's a kind of a bluey green humanoid creature that seems to be looking down and it's tilting its head slightly. And it's indubitably looks like the top part of a torso that's not human, and
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
ovaloid football head. It's extraordinary.
Yep, and there's actually a frame where it looks like it has the typical mantis arms as well. In one of the you can see it, that's right before it extends its hands out. And looks like it grabs onto like a skull. Like you can see, it looks like the mantis arms. And it was just it felt like I was looking into like a portal. Like it was everything at once, and it was definitely one of the most profound experiences I've ever had in my entire life. And
How far away is this showing itself to you, Mike?
it was no more than 50 feet away.
50 feet.
It
And
was
can I
very
ask,
small.
I know a lot of people are going to ask me this, all the dog lovers are going to ask me this. Your dog's presumably chained up somewhere. Is your dog reacting to what's happening?
No, so I was out like about 200 yards from where he was, 150 yards, 200 yards, and he was in his crate. He's got his, one of those impact crates, the really nice ones. He's real comfortable in there. But yeah, no, I didn't hear any barking or anything like that. But I did get that message. Lock up your dog, or we're not coming down there.
I love the idea that a highly advanced alien species is terrified of Belgian Malinois, because I am as well.
I mean, who isn't? Who isn't? Let's do that.
So I'm just scrolling through. It's gone from a blue mist at times. It looks like it was almost recalibrating itself. It goes to a blue mist and then it goes back into what looks like an alien being or some kind of humanoid being. And there are these, there's no other word for it. There are these kind of wings coming out. I mean, you can see why people might describe them as angels. It looks like an angel.
Yeah,
Were you seeing, how big was this object when you were seeing it, Mike?
it was big enough to fit a little 3.5 foot tall thing in there. It wasn't very big at all. And you can see in the video where the tree line is too. And those trees are no bigger than 40 feet.
I know you had an interesting unit of measurement to figure out the height. Tell me how you figured out how high the being was.
When I describe it, and I'm trying to be funny, I tell people that whatever being I encountered at that time was about 3.5 chickens high. It was a good reference point.
Because you've got chickens walking around your backyard, basically.
Those are actually my neighbors, and sometimes they get in my yard. But I will say this: if you ever hear if you ever see a video of a UAP and you hear chickens going off in the background, that's like my watermark. It's probably my video, because they always go off.
I mean, just talk again for me, Mike, because I think this is a really interesting point. How long ago did you see these petroglyphs with Carl?
Like last week, about a week ago, and I was just shocked when he brought me up. There's this one particular one that he brought me to, and I just stood there and I was like, okay, like now it makes sense. This is what they were trying to show me, and this is what people, however many thousands of years ago, were trying to show us. It's not easy to carve into rock. So whatever they saw, they meant business, because if they can do perfect spirals, they made that figure in that shape for a specific reason. It's not just because it was easy.
But the implications of this, Mike, are that whatever this phenomenon is, it's been around as long as the Native American peoples were drawing petroglyphs on the walls of rocks in Utah. We're talking thousands of years, aren't we?
Well, I think part of the story that they're trying to portray in these petroglyphs are that these beings, they don't see and react to time like we do, or the perception of time that we have. Like it's not linear to them. You know what I mean? So they've probably always been here, it's
at 10:33 on the video. There is a very good zoom that Carl's done for you of what I call the Egyptian figure. And irrefutably, it's a humanoid. it's some kind of humanoid-shaped entity. It appears to be sitting. Is it? Is it? What did you see it as, Mike? Just talk me through that image. It's a freeze frame of a purpley blue white.
Okay, yeah. So that was when it was coming down. Well, and like it was right after it turned into that petroglyph shaped figure. That's when it materialized as something that looked humanoid, like in the 3D that you could touch. And he was wearing a skin tight purple metallic suit. He had like some sort of controller in his hand, and at the time, like whatever craft that looked like the angel in the beginning, like it opened up. So now it's like almost he's on like the hoverboard from like the Green Goblin, and there's all these orbs behind him, and it was he was showing off.
Okay, so I think we've milked that video for as much as we can for the moment. We're going to change videos now, and we're going to go to another one that is called The Initiation. And I'm just going to open that.
So Ross, that first minute is the raw footage, and I was still in that trance, almost like dream state, and I'm holding my phone and I'm trying to keep it still and I'm fighting it, so it comes up in the corner of the image, and then we did the raw image first, and then we zoomed in and stabilized it and all that.
No, I've spoken to Carl. For anybody who's going to, I'm sure there will be debunkers and skeptics who say that Carl and you have done something to the vision, but essentially all you've done is lift the brightness, lift the contrast, and zoom. There's no other changes that have been made to this image.
And I invite all the debunkers and skeptics, and I'm not here to try to prove anything to anybody. Like I encourage independent research. Take a look for yourself. But yeah, we isolated that corner piece of the raw footage, and we manually stabilized it because I'm over here like this, and then we just adjusted the hues a little bit, the exposure, brightness, that kind of stuff, and it made the figures pop, and you're able to really see. But it wasn't until we slowed down the frames even more that like a whole nother world dawned upon us. That it was just shocking.
Okay, so at around about 4 minutes 45 on that video, I'm just going to roll that and get you to talk me through it. What I'm seeing is a kind of a blurry, greeny blue object. I presume that's some kind of platform that they were sitting on. And you see what looks like two heads. Can you talk me through what we're seeing?
Right. So it looked like if the craft maybe was shaped like an egg, for example, like it opened up like this, and there was two beings there. There was one in the middle, and then another one. They were moving around a little bit, and that's when you could see like the mantis arms at some point reaching out for the skull. And sorry, I mistake earlier in the we were talking about the first video. I mixed it up with the second video. So, but yeah, this is where he reaches his arm out, and it looks like he's holding the skull.
Okay, let me go to that. Let me go to that very quickly so that we can talk through it. I need to guide the editor. I mean, ultimately, all the way through this, it looks like it's phase shifting. What do you think is going on? Do you think these creatures are coming interdimensionally? I mean, I'm not aware of what you're being told telepathically, but are you being given any clues as to what's happening here, as to where they're coming from? Because it looks to me like they're sort of...
I think it's telling me a story. Like, it was trying to show me so much at once, almost like, it showed me in the last video things in a specific order, which led me down this path that, to find, those carved in stone. I think it's similar here. And I was up till 4 a.m. dealing with that video. I was texting you at 3 a.m. that video, and it would change into other entities. Like it would stay like those two figures would stay there, like in the same relative area, but they would change into different beings. There's actually one that it changes into that looks like it's wearing like one of the Egyptian headdresses, and I can't even count the number of beings that I thought I saw in that video alone. Like there would be like after every 10, 15 frames, if you slow it down, it changes to a new being, and then like a whole new landscape or craft around it. Like it, you have to see for yourself, viewers. It's it's hard to describe, you know, the feeling you get when you see it up close. You know, it's just.
And so you're still in this slightly soporific state. Whatever it's done to you, you're being allowed to film, but it's obviously calmed you in some way. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've mellowed out in my years. It used to be a little wild one, but in regards to this stuff, from the beginning, I've always got the message that they wanted to be filmed, and they were almost looking at the time for maybe prospects that were maybe good representatives or maybe an ambassador role that they were trying to build rapport with and vet to allow themselves to get closer to me and allow me to get the footage, because it's I would always, every time I go out and do one of these star parties, we call them, or contact events, we always kind of try to end the night with like a grand finale, you know, and they usually just put on like this big aerial show goodbye. And I think that, you know, I think every human has the innate ability to communicate with, you know, these beings. And I don't think I'm maybe even the best guy for the job. Maybe I was the right guy for the job because, you know, it's just right place, right time. And I took the interest, and I spent almost a year straight, you know, under the stars filming these things when it first started happening.
So there's a moment on the initiation video, and it looks like the entity, whatever it is, it's sitting in some kind of platform, but there's a kind of a glowing rectangular screen tilted at an angle, and it appears to be peeking from around that screen. What do you think that is? Can you talk me through what we're looking at?
Right. So, like earlier in the video, I mentioned it looked like that mantis was grabbing something by the head, right? But that figure in the middle stayed consistent throughout the video, and it almost like it was a portal, and things were poking his head in and out of it, you know, and like poking around it, and it always stayed like in the middle. And no matter how many times the craft or environment changed or shape shifted, like that middle piece would always like be glowing, or like, you know, like an interface or some sort of portal, like, and you know, you're always seeing things peeking out from behind it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I was trying to find in the quick run through on the video, I was trying to find the moment when the mantis holds up the head.
You can see he has three fingers, and he's clearly grasping something. And
Okay, so it's got you doing an audio through it, Mike. So I'm just going to play that through its entirety, and then I'll get you to talk through it afterwards.
There's a mantis. This is my footage. Like the headhunter's a legend, has a freaking head in his hand. This is it right here. Keeps turning into all this stuff. It's like telling a story. You slow it down, you can really see what's going on. Go back again. Go frame by frame right now. What was that?
What do you see? I mean, it looks to me like there's one guy sitting on the left in some kind of platform, and then there's another creature or entity sitting in the middle, and it looks like a different being.
So the creature on the left, if you're going through the video, it looks like it has the mantis arms and it's green, and then you can see it turn like this next frame over and grab something that to me looked like a skull, like, in whether it was or not, I don't know. But
and that's at 39 seconds. 39 seconds into that video, with what looks like it would be its left arm, it's holding up. It looks like a skull.
Right. And if it was a portal, maybe that was like a thing that opens up the portal, like an interface or something. Because no matter how many times, like you see later on in the video, it looks like other crafts are there that they morph into. That piece in the middle, that interface or that portal, whatever that was, stays consistent. So maybe it was pulling something out or putting something in. I don't know, but it did look like there was two humanoids, and then he grabbed the head, and then next frame it's there's always humanoids there. They're just or beings there, but they're just looking different than they did previous frames.
I mean, it's pretty freaky. I mean, are you nervous at this point, or are you still in that slightly docile state that they'd put you into?
I've only been slightly nervous. I'll say slightly because I don't get nervous easy when doing these contact events, and I don't think that it was alien. I think that it was something closer to home, but it exhibited the same characteristics as something we would consider alien.
So, as I'm looking at this, we're now at 1 minute 27 on the three-fingered head-holding mantis guy video. I mean, it's very clearly there are two distinct humanoids, one sitting in the middle with a very long, elongated head, or is it being held up by the other humanoid? It's not clear to me, but one's clearly got arms, and it looks like it's got three gigantic fingers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, it looks insectoid. It
does, and you pointed that out to me last night because I was still so shocked because that was like a discovery for me, that video, because I overlooked it the last couple of years because I was focused on the last video you were talking about, and then we dove deeper into this, but yeah, it looked like a lot of insects, and then you can see them moving around. It's hard to describe without even looking at the video because there's so much going on. And that night, we'll probably get into what happened after they left. But yeah, that's my memory is a little hazy on certain parts of that encounter.
What Mike has done is he's enhanced the colors of the initiation video at, I think, around about 4 minutes 37, 4 minutes 38, because it's essentially all green and white. And you can see it better with the color enhancement that Mike has done. But that's where the object being held up, which looks like a head being held up, is happening. It really is quite extraordinary vision. Did you get the impression that that was intended as a malevolent gesture or an unfriendly gesture, Mike? Was there any intention behind what it was showing you?
It could be. It could be because, back to the petroglyphs, those figures like this, they're holding heads in some of them. And maybe that was like a tribute, like the natives, whoever carved them, thought that was a head back then. So they carved those beings on the rocks looking like they were carrying heads. Maybe it was trying to show me something, but again, I think whatever sequence that it's presenting itself it is trying to tell me something. I don't think it went like all that way just to hang out 50 feet from me. Like, no, it's trying to teach me something.
Sure. Now, in the wake of this incident, you discovered you had scoop marks on your arm, didn't you?
It was the day after.
The day after.
Well, actually, it was the day after marks were different than the scoop. The scoop marks I've had from like childhood. I've had them for a long time.
Okay, so there's a scoop mark file in the folder which doesn't really show a huge amount. You just see a clear area of scar tissue on your arm. But did you suffer missing time at all in this incident? The incident where there was this landing?
Well, it's funny you bring that up. I absolutely did. So after 10 minutes of this encounter, and I'm sitting there like, don't even know what to think at this point. It was just abruptly, I was like, I'm tired now. While this thing is sitting right there, I was like, all right, I think I need to go to bed. And I have a detached workshop on my property, with my rocking chair in there. And I was like, while this thing was there, I did an about face, took myself into the workshop and sat down in the rocking chair. And, before I fell asleep, or the last thing I remember, I thought I saw something peeking through the window. Maybe it was my mind playing tricks on me because of what I just saw, and I was the shock and awe factor. But I fell asleep, and I woke up in my house, 150 yards away, on my couch. Nonetheless, and my dog was still in the crate, which is I would never leave him there if I was inside. And you know, it wasn't until I confided in a close friend of mine about that experience, and he got the play-by-play. He was there since the beginning. You know, thank God for that guy. He's like, well, look at, like, do you have any weird marks in you? Because he's, you know, he's the UFO. He's more UFO hunter, you know, in tune with, like, you know, the things to look for. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's a good idea, because my leg hurts. And I look down and I have this shaved circle on my leg, and there's 3 pinholes in it in the shape of a triangle. And even to this day, there's no feeling in it at all. Hair doesn't grow on it. And I've had 3 missing time episodes. And every time after I've shown up with a new mark next to the other one, it's kind of going in like a U.
Wow.
And I had a strange dream that night. I don't know, somewhere between me in my workshop and, you know, ended up on my couch. You know, I had a strange dream about actually being with 7 or 8 people on a craft. And then this is a dream. You know, I'm not saying that I did this. I mean, who knows? But in the dream, we were looking for crafts that were buried on Earth, that were like ancient or being hidden. And these 7 or 8 people, these beings, like, on the craft we're on, those beings were looking for specific people that could open the doors to them with their minds. So, you know, we walk up to this craft, you know, and it just opens up when you think about it. And then later on in the dream, we're flying the crafts with our mind, like fly by thought. And at the time, you know, I didn't know that was even a concept yet.
Have you ever done that since at all with SKYWATCHER?
I can't really speak on anything SKYWATCHER, but I, in my own time, you know, I ask, you know, or invite these entities to do certain things, and they're responsive, for sure.
So have you ever found yourself being able to control what feels like a craft in your mind?
Yeah, but it's not the way you think. It's not like when I do this, you know, most people would probably think that I'm sitting there crisscross applesauce like this, like in a deep meditative trance. That's not me. I don't have the attention span for that most of the time. But when I'm communicating with them, like, I'm making requests. You know, it's not like I'm putting my consciousness in the craft. Well, I mean, I guess in a sense I am if I'm thinking about doing it. I'm kind of visualizing it, but it's not like an out of body experience. And I think it's it's a 2-way form of communication. You know, maybe they're letting me take the toggles, or they're responding to requests.
So, Mike, I've got to ask you this. I've got to be the cynic, skeptic, debunker for the moment. Have you fabricated those videos?
I wouldn't know where to start. I'm not the computer type guy. You already knew before, you know, we were talking the technical difficulties we were having with my camera setup. I don't know how to fabricate anything video like that. I really don't. That's
and the thing that intrigues me is you've actually had that mobile phone vision or imagery since 2023. It's really only in the last few weeks, since you've been working with Carl Crusher, Carl Andreasen, that you've realized what you've got in that imagery.
It wasn't in the last few weeks. The second video we're talking about, that was in the last few days. Like, I knew I had something on there, but, like, you know, because it was in the corner of the screen, like, you know, when the thumbnails are, you can't even see it. You know, like, it's hard. Like, I knew there was those 2 beings there, and it looked like the craft had opened up, but it wasn't as impressive as the first video, you know, because you could see the craft going and it's shape shifting. And yeah, like, a lot of my photos, like, in my photo album, are just black screens, because you're at night and, like, the first thumbnail is black and you look over stuff, you know. And it wasn't until, like, you know, you're asking me to get certain videos there that it was actually the video before that one in my phone, because I was like, okay, let me dive into this and see what happens. And I'm glad I did. I mean, it would have been cool to have it 3 years ago, but I'm not complaining.
Just while we're here, there's another video in the file. It's called Triangular Craft 5142, and it's obviously at a considerable distance at night. There are 3 dots of light that you film, and it appears to be 3 dots of light in a triangular shape moving across the sky. How did you see that night? I can hear the chooks in the background there.
Well, I guess if I just stumbled upon it, I wouldn't have a really good story. But I was asked specifically to get footage of that craft, which I call the mothership, which I've seen quite frequently um, in the past, and that's contributed some time. But I I guess you can say scheduled it. I asked them like, hey, like I need this for this reason, and you set your intent, and you kind of have to have faith in the process because something that big has to be the size of a small city if it's in low Earth orbit, and sounds like a lot of resources to allocate to me, asking you to show up for a video. But that wasn't the first time I saw that. I'd seen it several times before that, and you actually interviewed a gentleman who saw that with me, actually.
Fred Baker. Fred Baker was one of the interviewees. He's an elite special forces soldier, as you are, and he was serving at Fort Bragg in a unit that cannot be identified. And he was with you, I understand, in a field in North Carolina. Tell me what happened.
So, Fred, let me just start here. Fred is one of the most outstanding gentlemen I've had the pleasure to meet and be around. He's no forward, and I listen to every word he says because he's much wiser than I am. And also, he has origins in combat control, and then went to another tier 1 unit. It wasn't specifically special forces, but it was soft. We were running an op, and this was me being vetted. Looking back now, because that landing video led to a sequence of events where like I was searching for answers, and maybe we can go into another time how I met him. But we're out there, and it was my first time meeting him, and like the fact that he came out was shocking to me because I had seen him on social media from this other thing I got going on, and I recognized him because I saw him at an event, and I was like, hey, this is what I have going on. We're from similar backgrounds, and he heard me out with an open mind, and we went out there, and I told him like, hey, look, this is what I've been experiencing. This is what I can do. This is how I'm doing it. Check it out. Do you want to check it out? So he came out there, and that was one of the most profound experiences I've ever had.
What do you see? Talk me through what you see. I've got Fred's account. Describe what you saw.
Right. So the thing with these beings is they're going to present themselves like in a way to at least the new person I'm doing it with, in the best way they're going to receive it. So if you're impatient and you want things now, they're going to make you wait for it and want it and put in some work for it. And that's what they did. They would give us little hints of something anomalous and, spark interest, and then it would go away, and Fred would sit there like, and like he would just kept wanting more and more until, and I was telling him, hey, look, like these are good signs. I've seen this before. Like tonight is going to be a special night. And I knew before Fred got there that night was going to be a catalyst that's going to lead to, a chain of events that are going to be, that led here really. So we were out there, and they made him wait all night. It's funny looking back at it. And then it wasn't until 4:45 when I told him something was going to show up, and it did right on time. We had this super bright, like almost angelic white bright light, like a star, like the brightest star in the sky overhead. And it was coming down from the sky, trickling like a fallen leaf. And it was just like fluttering down, and Fred's sitting there, and I'm like, hey, dude, hey, check that out. And we're looking at it, and it comes down like very, very low to the ground overhead. Like when it reached its basement of its travel, it started going back up until you could see it going all the way out until like into outer space, and it got smaller and smaller, and it came back down, and it did that 3 times. 3 times it did that.
How big was it?
It's hard to say because it was so bright, but maybe the size of a helicopter, if I had to guess. That orb looking thing, that's my best assessment on that. But that wasn't even the most interesting thing that happened.
Tell me about the large object that you and Fred saw.
The large object. So after, the initial object, went back into outer space and said sayonara, within an instant, like boom, this massive, when I say massive, Ross, I mean massive triangle appeared in front of us. And I was like, oh my God, it's the mothership. And Fred's sitting there like, how do you fake that? He's looking at me like, how do you fake that? He thought I was playing a hoax on him or something. Like, I'm not capable of doing that. That's not me, buddy. Neither was the other one.
How big is massive, Mike?
From now, after seeing it so many times since then, like I can't believe you got to make me put a number on it. I would have to say like I'm at least a mile wide, and
wow,
it had 3 lights, on the apexes. The one like the back ones were dimmer than the front one, or I didn't get video that night, but that's what it looked like. It had 3 lights, and it had orbs like rotating the triangular craft. I'm not sure for what purpose, but it was just going through the sky like silent and just smooth as butter. And it was there for like it was, it's hard to say how long. It was just like a couple minutes or less, and then just vanished.
So this is a solid craft. I mean, Fred says what he saw was a solid craft. Did you see it as a solid craft? It couldn't just be 3 points of light in the sky that were shaped like a triangle.
It was solid. It was a solid craft. It was the biggest. It's still thinking about it because I haven't seen it get that close since. I'm not sure if I wanted to, but no, I would love to see it again that close. But it was beyond massive. Like it's one of those things that you can talk about it, you can describe it, but until you are sitting there and it's overhead and it's taking up that much of the sky, and you're in a sense of paralysis, like of excitement. Because normally, like knowing me, I'm pulling out a camera and I'm gonna catch that 99% of the time. But that one, I didn't want to take my eyes off it, not for a second, and there was no sense of fear either.
So, Mike, the big question out of all of this is, what are they?
That's a very good question. I think that they're interdimensional beings, like if there are layers to this reality and we're sitting in the 3rd dimension, the 3rd density, like we wouldn't be aware, like with our physical senses, of these other dimensions that could be sitting right on top of us. Like things that we do here, like could affect their world, or like in their dimension, like, as above, so below, like, nuclear weapons, they're ripping apart like the fabric of space that could be destroying their homes, or, all that stuff. So, it's hard to say what they are or where they are, but they're definitely conscious beings.
You're in no doubt whatsoever, are you, that what you saw were beings, non-human, intelligent, highly advanced beings?
Well, put it this way. If there was people running around my backyard, we talking about something else. If there weren't people and they were so small and so foreign, I knew immediately when it shot out of this orb like a ejection seat with like a shooting star and coming down and shapeshifting. They had me at the shapeshifting part, okay, and the craft. Like, I'm beyond a reasonable doubt that they are sentient. At least they appear to be sentient in a way, like, conscious beings, and they communicate, through thought and consciousness, and manipulate, I think, their surroundings with it too.
Have you had any encounters with the beings since?
Yeah, I can say yes to that. I have nothing like as pronounced. I'd say like they put on a whole show in the videos that we're releasing in this section.
Why you? I mean, I don't mean any disrespect, Mike, but why do you think they showed themselves to you?
Well, that's a good question. And I ask myself that every day. And a lot of people ask me that question. And I don't think I'm special in any sense at all. I think that, I've taken interest in it, and I've put the time and the effort in building that relationship between another conscious being, and it seems that we have some sort of shared goal. Like they wanted me to film them, and it seems like they still want that. And, and I'm filming them for a similar goal. We want to get this out there. and maybe it's I was the right guy because I own a business. I don't have a regular 9 to 5. I can be up all night staring at the stars and have my neighbors think I'm nuts. And maybe just right place, right time, or it could just be they're assessing whoever they're encountering. Like, they're not going to land and put themselves in danger if there isn't a level of trust built, and they're not going to come close either. Fred got the red carpet rolled out for him. A lot of the times that I bring people out and it's their first time, like, they're not going to come in that close because it could scare a person and affect them negatively. They kind of get closer every time. But I don't know. I really don't.
If you go back into the rushes for the Fred Baker interview from the Jake Barber story that we did for NewsNation that aired in January, Fred Baker specifically talked about what he saw of this gigantic triangular UAP craft in his interview with me.
And all night, it would just keep me waiting, and then something would show up, and then it would pique my interest. What was that? And then hours go by again, and then something would pop up. Like, what is that? And it kept doing that all night until the very end, when this triangle showed up. And that was only part of it. That was definitely the grand show, but...
What did you see?
So I had just witnessed something that was unbelievable to me. And I turned to talk to my friend. I was like, that was unreal.
What did you see? What was it?
So the beginning of the show, if you will, this thing popped up way out in the atmosphere, and it started to fall. And it felt like if you'd imagine putting a really small pebble in the water, and it just kind of flutters down. That's what it was doing, just fluttering down. And as it got closer and closer, it get brighter and brighter. And when it hit the very bottom of its movement, it was the brightest thing out there. Just imagine brighter than any star you've seen out there, just lit up. It did that for, a millisecond, and then it dimmed back down, and it did the same movement all the way back up into the atmosphere.
One of the things that you'd mentioned to me off camera was that you'd been fasting. You'd been very careful about what you ate in the period prior to this experience with these entities.
Right. So I get these things, I call them downloads, like Neo from the Matrix. I know Kung Fu, just instantly. It's like you just get this zap of information that's just kind of forced into my brain, or I just receive it like an antenna. And, it's like little nudges that I get, especially when I'm asking this NHI, with my consciousness, like what do I need to do? Like, what do you guys want from me? How can I do this better? How can I get you guys to come closer? What am I doing wrong? And that was just one of the downloads, and it makes sense. Like, we live in a very toxic world, and if something isn't from this world, we would need to be in a contamination room for a couple of days before we could even get that close. And after, I woke up with those strange marks, and it was almost like an inoculation. Like, it was like needle holes, and maybe it was them hitting me with something. So I could be around them in the future. Who knows? But, I did get sick after that first occurrence. I got sick with a pneumonia, and I'd never had a pneumonia before that occurrence. So,
had you been fasting in the period prior to that encounter?
Yes. So back to the download, I was fasting. I was trying to just detox my body, and you could think, look clearer, and you just get all the poisons and junk out of your body that we consume daily, just in being American.
So do you think that was relevant to why you had the encounter you did?
I don't think that because I fasted, they came and landed. I think they landed because I, was agitating them.
You goaded them to, yeah.
I was daring them to do it. But I think that does play a role in psionic, abilities and your cognitive functions. Ask anyone who's ever fasted for a couple of days, at the end of it, like, you're feeling better, you're thinking clearly, and it's, we probably weren't designed to be consuming food at the portions and rate that we do as Americans or humans in general. And your body heals itself too when you go into a fasting mode. So I think,
But you intuitively felt that you had to fast in that period.
yeah, I will say that when I get that feeling, I know it's coming. You know what I mean? And I just intuitively do it. That was the first time, that was the confirmation. But I caught on to the pattern after. But
Can I ask you this, Mike? Did you get any feeling, any sensation of intention by the entities? I mean, obviously, the one moment that scares me a little, frankly, is the image of the entity holding up what appears to be a head. That's not entirely a friendly gesture. What do you think that meant? What do you think was the intention behind their appearing to you? Was it benevolent?
let's put it this way: if they wanted me gone, they probably had the capability to do that. They kept a safe distance. They held up what appeared to be a skull, maybe like, "Hey, don't come any closer," you know. Or if it was an interface for the craft and it just looked like a skull and they were touching it and holding it, but it looked like he was grasping something. So that might have been like, "Hey, don't come close, keep your dog in the crate," type thing. But like, don't come close, but we're gonna still give you this experience.
Yeah.
Most of the time, if you see someone holding up a severed head, you probably wouldn't approach.
I wouldn't go near
Historically.
What do you want to do with these psionic abilities, Mike? I mean, obviously, you've discovered you've got these abilities. What would you like to do with them? How would you like to utilize them?
So the best thing I could be of to anybody is probably some use. I think that this is a teachable ability, and I think that for disclosure and mass awakening, like what I want to do is I want to be in a setting like perhaps like a festival or a large event where I'm in front of 10,000 people and I can guide everyone so we can all do it at the same time and see what happens. Because I know that, if you're out there and you're with people that have psionic abilities, like there's strength in numbers there. And if,
So, so do you think anyone can do what you do?
I mean, I don't think everyone can do what I do. I'm pretty stubborn and I'm too dumb to quit. But mixed with that and some curiosity, I think everyone has the ability as a human. Like I think it's a human birthright to that we maybe have forgotten over time. Like a forgotten knowledge. But I think everyone has the ability for sure. And you can't. There's not a single person you talk to if you ask them, "Hey, have you ever like thought about someone and then they called right away?" It's the same type thing. Like best friends are like reading each other's minds all the time, and they know what each other are thinking. It's really no different than communicating with the NHI.
When you were having these encounters, were the objects clearly discernibly solid or were they translucent? You've described them as if they were coming out of a portal of some kind. Do you think they ever achieved a solid state, or was what you were looking at just images that you were recording?
I've seen all sorts of things. Like there's a spectrum here. Like I've seen solid crafts and I've seen ethereal looking ones that that look like the guy sitting down. And I have some photos I can share with you of that too. And I think that it could play into part with if there are different species of these things, maybe like what faction they belong to, what kind of craft they're in, where they're from. Like there's so many things that could factor into it. But if they are interdimensional, it may be safer to stay in that halfway materialized state. It could be safer than being a solid object. That could be, fall out of the sky or crash or whatever.
Was there any smell or noise while you were watching these entities?
So the time when it landed, with the chicken present, there was a strong smell of like, it kind of smelled like frogs or like pneumonia. It kind of smelled like a pneumonia, like swampy. And I'm not near a swamp at all. So that's one thing I noticed.
So you're in bushland, you're in forest, very near to Fort Bragg.
I'm in like cornfields land. Put it that way. Not so many forests, but yeah, cornfields and stuff like that.
And how far away is the military base, the Fort Bragg military base, from where you are?
It's like 30 minutes tops, so it's not far.
Do you think they were interested in you as much as you were interested in them?
Which ones are we talking about here?
The
So
entities, the beings, or whatever it was that you were encountering.
um, I would think so, because they're putting in a lot of effort showing up for me, and when I really need it, for certain reasons. And you know, I think that if you do this, at least for me, like I was doing it so much in a certain area that I was creating a signature. And if the military or whatever actors can get these on sensors and stuff, you know, they may have sent out. I truly believe there are alien replica vehicles, and I think that I've created a signature, and some of those have shown up before, because I can tell the difference right away just from being around them. I've never heard a single sound from a craft
So
until
when you say there are ARVs, alien replica vehicles, can you tell psionically that it's not non-human?
yes, yes, and because it almost, well, I can almost sense that there's like a human operating it, just, well, because I've seen a triangle craft like that mothership, nowhere near as big, had the three lights, but it had a light in the middle as well. And I remember looking at that light, and this thing passed right overhead, you know, and I looked at that light, and that messed up my vision for months. But also, as it passed overhead, it sounded like there was like 18 wheelers like spinning like this, like in a circle around my head, but you couldn't hear it until it got like right over your head. And then as it was passing over, it was decelerating. So you could hear it go, "Woo, woo, woo, woo," like it sounded like a spaceship. Like, but
And you believe that was human
yeah,
technology?
yeah, not like a non-exotic spaceship. Like this is something that, we probably pieced together.
And was that something that you were able to psionically contact? Like, do you think that they're using a psionic interface to drive that craft?
It would make sense, especially if they're exhibiting like certain behaviors that the exotic ones are, like hypersonic speeds, like turning at a dime, that kind of thing. It would make sense that they're using similar technologies, not probably not as advanced, because I heard them coming. And another instance where I was quite certain that it was not NHI. We were filming it, and it was being like overly responsive, like to the point where like I was almost like it was not a normal typical experience, and it felt like I was getting spoofed, like you're like, okay, so I'm doing this all the time, I'm creating a signature now that I'm getting attention from other things, and they're coming to, who knows.
Now, Mike, officially, of course, the government denies any knowledge of a non-human intelligence, ETs, aliens engaging with planet Earth. What do you say to that?
I think that we're the closest we've ever been to that narrative changing. you know I think most people these days, believe that's happening, and it doesn't really affect their daily life. But I know, people like Representative Burleson, and he's doing his part, and he's trying to push this. And you even see Trump, President Trump, he gets asked questions about that, and he doesn't go out and directly say yes, but he dances around it. He's like, "Oh yeah, of course I would imagine there would be." Like he's saying it without saying it. So I think in my lifetime, we'll we'll get that disclosure, or like at least that admittance. It may not be the way we want it, but the videos I'm presenting in this interview, like this is disclosure happening. Like, guys, go and try to debunk that. It came off of an iPhone. I can't replicate that.
And in fact, I should put on the record that Mike has given us the originals from his cell phone footage, and we've been able to verify that whatever the images are, they show no signs, as far as I can see, of any kind of meddling or any kind of AI interference. Whatever they are, they're what he filmed in 2023.
Right.
Mike,
And oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, that's right. Keep on going.
Yeah, it just reminds me, like, that experience, especially now being able to review it. And I think that, if they don't have the same perspective of time as we do, that like this is almost like was orchestrated. It happened at the perfect time, and for even for a self-discovery type thing. You know, Even if that happened to the average Joe, like without a military background or just like your regular, like hardworking American, like, and if they spoke out about that, you know, would they get the same response, you know, in validation, or even if they saw it, would they tell anyone? Would they pursue the truth and getting the truth out there as much as, you know, I have, and, you know, been motivated to? Because I mean, I've had a great run, great time doing this. It's been very rewarding, especially when I get to see people's faces, like Fred, for example. Like when you change people's lives forever, and it's, you know, that makes me feel like I'm doing something. So and helping in a way, it's fun.
Well, Magic, Mike, Battista, it's been an honor to speak with you, and I think our audience will be going away to process what they've seen today and to make their own judgments. Can I just get a categorical statement from you before we go? As best as you can swear on whatever stack of Bibles, the images that you've sent us, they are authentic. You recorded them. You saw them. They're not some contrived image.
Everything you're presenting, you know, to the viewers here is completely authentic. Again, I wouldn't know where to begin to even fabricate anything digital. So we'll leave it there. But yeah, no, it's real. You know, I'm just a regular guy trying to play my part here, and, you know, it doesn't even really benefit me in many ways coming forward with these videos or public at all. You know, sometimes it's quite the opposite. So it's coming from a good place, and I hope that you know, the viewers out there, you know, can get something out of it, and they can see something for themselves.
If what you've shown us today is real, it may be some of the most interesting imagery ever seen of a non-human intelligence attempting to engage with humanity. Magic, Mike, Battista, thank you so much for talking to Reality Check.
Thank you, Ross. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And before we go, please don't forget to send in your questions for our weekly question and answer. You can email us at realitycheck@newsnationnow.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.